What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bringing us another album review. Now quickly before we get on to this album review of another Unique Leader release, I'd just like to thank everyone who checked out my last Unique Leader release, which was Ingested Level Above Human. 870 plus views and I gained quite a few subscribers. I can't remember how many off the top of my head, but I really want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for checking out that review and subscribing. It really means a lot to me and pushes us on to do more content like we are today. So yeah, keep subscribing and keep checking out my videos. More content will be coming up very, very soon, if my camera doesn't, you know, fuck up as much as it has lately. But moving on from that, but we have another album review to do and another one from Unique Leader, and this is the new Obliterate album entitled Impending Death. As I said, released on the Unique Leader Records. I'm struggling to say that lately, but it's going to be dropping on May 18th, if I'm not mistaken. And this one is another killer deathcore release that you really need to check out when this drops on May 18th. Like, there's been some seriously sick deathcore movements so far in 2018, ask me. Obviously, you could class Ingested as one of them, and Within Destruction, obviously. There's been quite a few in that department. But this was one that I feel that I was quintessentially looking forward to in 2018, because it's been some time since Obliterate released something in, I believe it was 2012. Yeah, 2012 they released their debut album, The Filth of Humanity, which I haven't awfully listened to a lot. I have listened to it a couple of times and it is sick as fuck, so make sure you check that out. But the one that I am very familiar with was their last release, which was released in 2014, was this one, their self-titled EP. This thing, for all it being 4 tracks and an outro, it is crushing. This is easily one of the most crushing EPs in my entire CD collection. I picked this up through Chugcore, and I believe I still have copies, so check that out. I'll leave some links down below and stuff, obviously to Obliterate and such. But yeah, if you haven't heard the song Relentless featuring Fred Bellier, I believe that's how it's pronounced, from Beheading of a King. I'm not sure if they're still together, but yeah, make sure you check out that song. It is absolutely crushing. The main riff of that song is just amazing. But obviously it's been like, what, 4 years since then, and they've released a couple of songs leading up to this album. They've released obviously the title track, which is sick as fuck. But the main song that kind of led us on to believe there was going to be a new release from this band was obviously the third track called Cerberus. Now, when that song came on this album, when I was listening away to it, I completely forgot that that song was released, and as soon as it came on, I was like, I've heard this song before. And then I looked and it was Cerberus, so I was like, it was kind of like deja vu in an essence. But yeah, and then obviously I got the promo from Unique Leader Records, and thanks to the guys for hooking us up with this and giving me the chance to review it, because this is seriously one of the sickest, most devastating deathcore releases so far in 2018. It's not like as destructive as the likes of Within Destruction, but it has its own sense of charm to it that I've always loved Obliterate for, and that is merely their cross of like not intensely technical deathcore, but translating that as like, nah, not so much that sort of stuff, but going for sheer groove and catchiness. And that's one thing that I feel with this that entails in there. It kind of reminds us in an essence of what's the album? Our Endless War, and maybe to an extent self-titled, and the new album, Mark of the Blade. It kind of falls along that sort of style front. It still feels a little bit more raw and a bit more nastier sounding, a bit more vicious, you could say, to an extent sounding than those Wyattxhim albums. Not so much Our Endless War, because that's still one of my favourite Wyattxhim albums, but I'd definitely say it falls more into the groove sort of spectra of things. I think it definitely offers a lot more catchiness involved with deathcore, because obviously deathcore is a lot of involved with like blast beats and then a slow breakdown, and when bands cover an aspect of groove and make the songs catchier, that's when I'm like enticed straight in, and Obliterate definitely do that in a sense with this album. like, don't take that away from the fact there is some seriously good blast beats and some heavy slow breakdowns on this. But one thing I do that I think adds to that whole love that I have for this album is the production value, and the overall production sound doesn't sound. It does sound a lot in reminiscent. I'll just keep on referencing, but it kind of sounds like a clean production, kind of along the same sort of lines of later Wyattxhim, with that whole like very clean, crispy quality guitar tone that definitely gives it a lot of clarity, but it makes it more impactful, and it takes away from it takes away from the boomy aspect of a heaviness and translating it into just nasty heaviness that just makes it feel like an absolute. The only way I can describe it, it feels like a bit more, rather than a hammer being, it does feel like a hammer, but it feels like that hammer's got some, like, spikes on the front of it just to tear at your flesh a little bit more. That's the overall, sensations that this album brings, if you ask me. And that's one thing that I think Obliterate has done throughout the discography. He's not giving it that beefy, chunky, low-end guitar tone. It's more giving it a higher, crisp, clear guitar tone, just to give it that bit more impactfulness, I feel, and I think it definitely shows on this album. Also, one aspect I forgot to say, this album's only 29 minutes in length, so only half an hour long, and for all that is quite a short space of time for a full length, especially waiting, how long's it been, 4 years since the self-titled EP. Obviously that is quite a short album, but to me anyway, in my personal opinion, the more you listen to this album, the more you start to fall in love with it, and you put it on repeat and repeat, and it never gets old, and you start noticing different aspects. Like, before this review, I noticed some little aspects that I didn't realise in Death Notice, for example, which is the 7th track, which is personally my favourite song on this album. I think just as a whole, that song is just crushing, and it kind of does reminiscent of the new Wyattxhim sound. Another particular track that I particularly enjoy is another new one on this album, was Aneurysm, which is the 2nd track after Impending Death. And that one, I have to say, is an absolute brute of a song, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It just gives us a warm sensation. You know what I mean? But Aneurysm and Death Notice are definitely my favourite songs on this album. But, like as I said, the drum work is not as relentless as you would expect. It's relentless to an extent, but it's not overbearing. It's not, like, beyond technical, like Flesh God Apocalypse or anything like that, or Infinite Annihilator to an extent. It's just short, punchy to the good. The grooves are there, and the riffs, they just hit hard with that crispy, clear guitar tone, and then some really exceptional lead work, creating great atmospheres across this entire album in itself. And I feel like it just soars over the breakdowns, and with that crushing guitar tone, it doesn't fade into the back, and it's not obnoxious in your face grill, like, look at me, I can play a lead guitar work. None of that kind of bullshit. It's just really well mixed, a very well mixed released, and all that. Vocal department, there's a lot to be loved about these vocals, if you ask me. My personal feeling is I feel like the low vocals are just more ferocious, vicious, and just overall, just the feels with the being filled a lot more with animosity, and there's a lot more emotion in the delivering of this album's vocal-wise. And the high-end vocals on this, the high vocals, they do soar with the pitching involved that he does, and they just sound so sharp, and just, they kind of, in an essence, they kind of remind us of Scott Ian from Scott Ian Lewis, isn't it? I can't remember, but Scott from Carnifex. It kind of reminds of that kind of like torturous. That's the perfect word to describe the high end vocals. They sound torturous, but still emotion filled and just overall great. And I always enjoy the lyrics to these songs, or any song of Obliterate. They are well written, and just, I absolutely love them personally. Another thing I'd like to point out, there is a couple of guest spots on this album. You've got In the Devil's Care, which is the 6th track on this album. It's only an 8-track song, I might as well point out. But the 6th song, you've got In the Devil's Care, featuring Jamie Hanks of I Declare War. a signature voice in deathcore and I know he's not been in the band since the beginning, but he has become the voice of I Declare War, and him putting his vocal chops on this album just adds so much. It seems like no matter what release he goes on, as soon as he comes on, you know, that is Jimmy Hanks. There's no other way around it whatsoever. And another guest spot you got is on the 8th track, and you've got another titan and a well-known voice within the deathcore community, in the world of deathcore, should we just say, and that is the king of the laws, if you ask me, Adam Warren from Oceano. One of my favourite vocalists in deathcore, and wow, I saw him recently on the Carnifex tour. He just gets better and better every live show. He's just getting so more vicious, and on this performance, he does sound just as vicious and pissed off as he always does. And it's just those laws that just make you, make your guts just shrivel up and just go nope. And yeah, and 2 signature voice lines just make this album just that little bit more sweeter. And overall, as I said, fantastic production work, crisp and groovy riffs, but still impactful, and vocals just filled with viciousness. It's all around one of the best deathcore releases I've heard so far this year, and as I said, it's a little short and it doesn't take away a lot for me. So for overall score, I'm going to give the new Obliterate album called Impending Death, released under Unique Leader Records on May 18th. I'm going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. Excellent album, and I'm so glad these guys are back, and I hope that it's not going to be too long of a wait until the next one. I'm hoping for a 2020 release, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be picking up a copy of this when I get the chance. But yeah, I'll see you till the next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.